Good morning, all of you. Now, if it comes to here, in last class we have been studied few terminologies before going to study the Mendel's traits, Mendel's laws regarding this heredity. So now in that the first one is we have been studied what is chromosome, and the next one is I told you what is gene, and the next one we have studied what is the recessive gene and as well as dominant gene. So as we know, these genes, this recessive gene and as well as types of genes, dominant gene, both we used to represent with the alphabets. So the dominant gene always represent with what letters, guys? So the dominant gene is used to represent with the capital letters, and as well as if you take the recessive gene, we used to represent with the what? We used to represent with the small letters. So now, and also if you'll notice it, in last class itself I told you, always gene will work as a pair or alone. Is it will work with a pair or alone, guys?
Sir.
Genes which always will work as a pair. So that is why, in for example, if you take in pea plants, so the dominant gene for tallness we used to represent with a capital T, and as well as the recessive gene for dwarfness is we used to represent with the dwarfness means short plants, we used to represent with the small t. So if we'll when we write the genetic cross for this pea plant, then always you remember for a pea plant, if you write the genetic cross, T represents a tall, capital T, and the same way a small t represents dwarf. So dwarf in the sense of a short plant. That is what you have to remember. So now as we know, always genes will work as a pair. They won't work as an individual. So that is what we used to see, that description of the genes which are present in an organism, this pair of description, what kind of description of genes are present in an organism, that is what we are going to study the next concept called as genotype. Do you understand, everyone? So the next word or terminology which you should know is called as genotype. So genotype means in the sense of, so what kind of genes are present inside the organism? Means in the sense of organism contains what kind of pairs of genes. That is only we used to call it as genotype. So it will give the description of the genes which are present in the organism. So we can say that is only known as the genotype. So this genotype is always we used to represent a pair of letters. For example, if we take a pair of letters capital TT, or else I can represent with the capital T and small t, or I can represent with the two small t's. So this is what, how we need to represent the genotype. So genotype means what it will say, guys? It will give you the genetic constitution of an organism. What kind of genes are present inside the organism will be represented by the genotype. So now that is only known as genotype, that it will give the description of genes present in an organism. So this always we used to represent as a pair of letters. Pair of letters, and that is what example if you take capital TT, capital T, small t, or small t and small t. So now if you take here, if you represent capital T and as well as small t, there are different forms of the same genes. That is what you have to understand. So if you take this capital T and small t, they are the different forms of same gene. So that is what you have to understand. But here what it is, capital T, both indicate tallness, and here small t and small t, it is indicate what, guys? It is indicate what? Dwarfness. Yes or no? So the genotype of tall plant we can write as a capital T and capital T, and genotype of, if we'll take capital T and small t, it is also represents a tallness only, but here two different forms of same gene is present. And if you take here small t and small t, if you take, so that is represent what? Small t and small t always represent what, guys? Which kind of plant? It is the dwarf we used to call it as. So this is only known as genotype. Genotype means what kind of description, like inside what kind of gene it is present. That is what we used to call it as genotype. Means in a given pair of genes, what kind of things are present inside, either it related to the tallness, dwarfness, or color, or whatever it is. That is what. So thousands of genes are present. So it constitutes what it is. That is what we used to call it as genotype. Understand everyone? Please respond. So now, if you notice it, as we know here, if you understand this capital TT we used to represent tallness, and even capital T and small t also, two different kinds of genes is present in the same gene, to different forms. So here also that capital T is called as a dominant gene and small t is called as recessive gene. So this is also representation of tall plant only. And if you take a small t and t, this is what the representation of dwarf plant. So now if you notice it, for example, according to the Mendel's only, if you'll see, so we can basically see the two kinds of plants. So what is that? One is very large plant. Is it yes or no, guys? Please respond. So one is large plants and another one is very short plant. So now if you notice it, if you'll see physically, it is appears as a what, guys? Try to speak. If you'll see, it is visible. How it is visible? The characteristics. Directly we can say, when you will see physically, we can say, oh, it is a tall. When you will see this one physically, how it is appears? It is appears as a tall. Understanding? So it appears as a tall. So this physical appearance only, the characteristics which are visible is in an organism, that is only we used to call as phenotype. You understand, everybody? So genotype means what kind of genes are present inside. Description of genes will say in genotype, and which is appears. You understand? So the characteristics which is visible, that is what? Visible to us. That is what we used to call it as. What we used to call it, guys? Phenotypes we used to call it as. Understand? So for example, let me take, so being tall, or we can say being dwarf. As dwarf also we can call it as what? Short. So this is only we used to call it as phenotype. But when how you can say, sir, it is phenotype? Because when you can see, the traits can be seen by us. Is it yes or no, guys? Is it visible to us or not? If we'll see the pea plants, we can observe some tall plants and some short plant. Yes or no? Please respond. Yes. So which are the characteristics or traits which are visible to us, is only called as, what we used to call it? Phenotypes we used to call as. Understand? So now that is what? So the phenotype of an organism, which will gives you the physical structure, the actual physical characteristics, which is determined by the genotype. And the genotype, if you notice it, for example, if you take capital T or capital TT, or if you take capital T and small t. So what is the resultness? Both this. What is the result of this both? Tallness or what it is, guys? What is the result? This is only we used to call it as genotype. Yes or no? So this is only genotype, and it will represent what is the phenotype? Anybody? Capital TT and capital T and small t. What is the phenotype? What is this appears, guys?
Tall and short, sir.
Tall, sir.
Genotype is capital T and capital TT and capital T and small t. And the phenotype is, what is the physical appearance? Tall. That is what we used to call it as phenotype. Same way, if we take small tt, this is called as what? What we used to call it? It is the genotype.
Dwarf.
So it results in what? It is the genotype.
Dwarf.
It will result in what? It will result in the dwarf phenotype. So the physical appearance is only we used to call it as, what we used to call it, guys? Phenotype. That is what you have to remember. So now how many of you understand the difference between genotype and phenotype? So genotype means the description of the genes, understand, present in the organism, and phenotype means the physical appearance which is visible to us is only called as phenotype. Are you clear, everyone? Aishwarya?
Yes, sir.
Nitish? That is what you have to understand. So there is no kind of confusion between phenotype and genotype. So remember, genotype, once again I'm saying, it will give you the description of the genes present in the organism, and the phenotype, what it will say? It will say that the physical appearance, understanding, how can be seen by us? How we are seeing that? If it is appears tall for us, the tall is called as phenotype. If it is appears such a short or dwarf, then that dwarf is called as, what is to call? Phenotype. That is what you have to understand it. Everybody clear? Any doubt? Please respond. Okay, so please write genotype. Genotype. Himara, we understand, Sutir? Right. Genotype. Genotype is the description of a genes. Genotype is the description of a genes. Genotype is the description of a genes present in an organism. Present in an organism. And genotype always we have to represent what? Single letters or pair? Always pair of letters we have to represent. That is you have to remember. And it is always a pair of letters. And it is always a pair of letters. And always it is a pair of letters such as capital TT, capital T and small t, and R, or small t and small t. Small t and small t. These are the three examples of genotypes. That is what remember. So now, so genotype of tall plant, how it we can write? Tall plant genotype. What is the genotype of tall plant, guys? Genotype of tall plant, if you take, so what is the representation? Which is either capital TT or we can represent capital T and small t. Same way, genotype of dwarf plant or short plant, if you take, what is the representation? Genotype representation, small tt. That is what you have to write it. Clear, everyone? So have you understand or not? Please respond. Genotype means. Next one is called as what? Phenotype. Phenotype. So what do you mean by phenotype, guys? The physical appearance. That is what? The characteristic which is visible in an organism. The characteristics also we can call it as what? Yes, trait. Understanding? Characteristic or trait which is visible in an organism is called its phenotype. Is called its phenotype. Example. What is the example, guys? Tall, or we can say what? Dwarf. Tall or dwarf. That is only. So we can determine. So always the physical character, how it is visible to us. It is appears by, we can determine by phenotype, and what kind of genes are present inside, we can determine by phenotype, genotype. That is the difference between phenotype and genotype. So this is what everybody need to understand. So till here, any doubt, anybody you can ask me. Clear, everybody?
Sir.
Ashika? Omega? Yeah. So now if you'll understand this, then we'll move further. So that is what. Next, what is the words we have to remember? Everybody check it and tell me classwork. Next, what we are going to study? F1 generation and as well as F2 generation. So this is not a new thing, which is already the old thing which you people study. So that is what we'll see now. So next one, all of you keep hitting F1 generation, or we can say filial generation. First, F1 generation, or also we can say first filial generation. So now, try to understand first what do you mean by F1 generation, because next Mendel's experiments on pea plants, everything will come F1, F2 generations like that only. So hope you already know, but level once again try to understand. So what do you mean by this F1 generation means? So as we know, more variations will take place in where, guys? Asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction? Please respond. More variations will take place asexual or sexual reproduction? More variations, I am asking.
Sexual, sir.
Last class I told you variations and as well as
Yes,
accumulation of variations and all, correct? So more variations will lead in only sexual reproduction. That is why it is a benefit to the organisms, and it will improve the variations to increase the survival or stability of an organism for this existence. So now this more variations usually takes place in sexual reproduction. So now if you take in this sexual reproduction, so how many parents are involving, guys? How many parents are involving? Two parents are involved. Is it yes or no? So we know that two parents are involving. So one is what? A male parent. Another one is what? Male and as well as female. Understand? So now if you take two parents, they will cross each other, or else they will start breed each other. So that breed, or we can say cross. So they used to produce a progeny. So first generation they used to produce. So that is only we used to called as F1 generation. So they used to produce the offsprings. Yes or no, guys? Please respond. So this offsprings also we used to called as what? I told you in the last class. Also we used to called as progeny. So now when the two parents are crossed each other or breed, they will produce a progeny. Then this first progeny, which is produced by two parents, is only called as F1 generation. What we used to call it, guys? This is only known as F1 generation, or else we can say first filial generation. Is it okay, Arvind, Nitesh, everybody? So now, again, you remember, this is what this F1 generation represents. This is the progeny of a cross of two parents in the first time. So now, once this F1 generation is involved in again the sexual reproduction of again future progeny, means in the sense of when this first generation, so first generation, these first generation again they will cross. That is what first generation progeny, they will cross or they will start breed. Do you understand? Breed and among themselves. That is the most important. Among themselves. Example I will explain so that you can understand. Among themselves, and then what is happening? They will produce the next second generation. Okay, progeny. That progeny only what we used to call, guys? Second generation progeny. That is only we used to call as what, Arvind? That is only we used to call as
F2 generation.
Do you understand? So F2 generation, or also we can say second filial generation. So everybody try to understand. So if the two parents are crossed or breed to in order to produce a progeny, so that first progeny is called as F1 generation. Now this F1 generation will cross or breed among themselves, and they will produce the second generation progeny. That is what we used to call as F2 generation. So now, for example, let me take the generation produced by crossing of two F1. So for example, here two parents are there. Let me take, this is one male parent and female parent, and this is another male parent and another female parent. So they used to produce by crossing, they will produce F1 generation. Is it okay, guys? And these also they will cross each other and they will produce what? F1 generation. Is it okay, guys? first progeny. Now, these both F1 and F1, they will cross each other and they will produce the next generation. So that is only we used to call as, what we used to call guys?
F2 generation.
F2
F2 generation.
generation means by crossing of 2 F1, understanding, by crossing of 2 F1, then they will produce the new progeny. That is what we used to call as F2 generation. So for example, sir, I want to understand. For example, let me take our mother and father. If we'll take, they are called as parental generation. What we used to call? They are called as parental generation. Is it yes or no? You might be checking most of your families you are having. So mother and father, we used to call as what, guys? Mother and father is called as parental generation. So now parental generation, we are having whom? The children. So if they are getting the children, they are called as what we used to call as, guys? F1 generation. Understand? F1 generation. Now, if you get again, the children will cross and they will get grandchildren. Grandchildren is called as what? Grandchildren is known as what? They are only called as F2 generation. Understand? So now most of your family also you can notice it. So parental generation means, for example, your grandparents. Yes? You might be having grandparents. So the grandparents we can consider as a parental generation. So the male and female is cross the breed. They used to produce the parents. That is our parents. Our parents means they are the children for them. Yes or no? So that is what F1 generation. So here the children also, how many again? Again male and female will be there. That is what I am saying. 2 F1 generations need to cross again and they will produce again a grandchildren. So these grandchildren only we used to call as what, guys? We used to call as F2 generation. Hope you all understand what do you mean by F1 and F2. So F1 means 2 parents, they will cross and they will produce the progeny. That is what we used to call as F1 generation. So now, whatever the progeny is getting by 2 parents, and these 2 F1 generations will cross again and they will produce the again next progeny. That progeny is only we used to call as F2 generation or second generation offsprings. So if you need any, if you have any doubt till here, you please ask me. So these are the terminologies which we have to study before going to study the characteristics inheritance from the parents to the children, how it is involving like who that George Mendel. Before going to study his explanation, we have to know the meaning of these words. Then only we need to move further. And we have to remember, by the time of Mendel, there is no word called as gene. And instead of gene, he has been used a word called as what it is. Yesterday I told you. Elamati, can you say? Factors.
Factors.
Factors is the word which has been used by Mendel. So while we are studying in Mendel's experiments, we are not supposed to use a word called as gene. Only everywhere we have to use factors only. So now, please all of you write F1 and F2 generations. F1, so filial generation we used to say, and F2 generation, second filial generation. Please all of you write F1 and F2 generations. So what is F1 generation, guys? Right. When two parents cross to produce progeny, when two parents cross to produce progeny, Bhumika, have you understand, Bhumika? Tarani, a call to absentees. Have you understand or not, Arya? That is, so when two parents cross to produce a progeny, then their progeny is called first filial generation. Then their progeny is called first filial generation. Then this progeny is called first filial generation. Next, when the first generation progeny cross among themselves, cross among themselves to produce a second generation progeny, to produce a second generation progeny, to produce a second generation progeny, then that progeny is called second filial generation. Then that progeny is called second filial generation. Then that progeny is called second filial generation. Second filial generation or F2 generation. So this is what example you can write. This is parental generation will use to produce the children, and the children is called as F1 generation, and grandchildren is called as F2 generation. So this is the example of both F1 and F2 generations, or 1 and 2 filial generations. Please all of you write it. Till here, any doubt you can ask me, or else we will move further. Everybody's see this chapter more priority, carefully how to study. If you have any doubt, kindly ask me, I will explain. Hope you all understand till here. Padmarshini, Karthikeyan, Krutika.
Yes,
That is. Next. Bhumika called to Jesse. Jesse is not there. Ashika also. What happened to Ashika? Ashika joined before, but now not there. So many are not there. Inform them. That is. So now next. So as we know, who is the first scientist studied about the inheritance? Inheritance means the transmission of characters from the parents to the offsprings. Who is that? George Mendel only. Understanding. So he's the Mendel was the first scientist to make a systematic study of this pattern of inheritance, which will involve the transfer of characteristics or traits from parents to the progeny. And he did the experiments or whatever the study by using a different varieties of pea plants. So now why he chosen pea plants alone, and later how this pea plants things is applicable to the animals and as well as human beings also, we will study in this today's class. So he is the first scientist. George Mendel was the first scientist who studied this systematic study of characters transforming from parents to the progeny. So now he studied all his analysis with the help of pea plants. So now, and these pea plants also he used to grow in his garden only. Understand? So now if you notice it, some of the characteristics of the pea plants whose transmission to progeny just investigated by Mendel by looking itself what he has been involved, what kind of characteristics or traits he has been observed from one generation to the next generation of pea plants is only, first of all, he observed color of seeds. Understanding? So color of seeds is transforming from one generation to another generation. Next one, length of stem. Understanding? Length of stem. So some plants are very tall in size and some plants are very short in size. So like that, these are the direct investigation by Mendel on pea plants directly observed that some of the characteristics is transmitted from one progeny, means from parental to the next progeny. In that the first one is height of the plant or length of the stem, and the next one colors of the seeds, and the next one shape of the seeds. So you used to notice it. Even we people also you can notice it. If you're having a crop, this pea plant crop, you can see some seeds are very spherical in shape. Is it yes or no? Very round in shape. And some seeds you might be buying in a market also. Some seeds are wrinkled in nature. Have you seen, guys? Please respond. So this is only we used to call it as wrinkled seeds. So some seeds are round in shape and some seeds are wrinkled in shape. So like this, these are the contrasting characteristics investigated, and also the main thing which has been noticed it, colors of the flowers also he noticed it. Colors of flowers. So now he noticed it in all pea plants, the colors of the flower colors, either it is coming violet color or white color. So these are the transmissions or traits which is moving from one progeny to the another progeny, which is investigated by Mendel's in his pea plants garden. So now, why he has been chosen this pea plant only for this studying the inheritance of characteristic traits? Now let us understand. You might be see he has been noticed some characteristics. What is the characteristics he has been noticed, guys? These all the characteristics. Anybody otherwise you tell me what is the first one? So he has been noticed it. Height of the pea plant or length of the stem of a pea plant. That is what, as I told, either tallness or dwarfness. And the second one, the color of the seeds. And the next one, shape of the seeds. Either it is round seeds or wrinkled seeds. And the next one, colors of the flowers. That is either violet color or blue color. Sorry, violet or white color. So these are the things which has been observed, investigated by Mendeleev. Understand? So now, why this Mendeleev choose the pea plant for this studying the inheritance? That is what a very important question. So can anybody say why he has been chosen a pea plant? The first point. So that is why. So why he choose a pea plant only? The first point is, so it is having a clear-cut difference which were easy to tell, understand. So about, like for example, tallness or dwarfness and the color of the seeds, where easily we can easily say the number of clear-cut differences. That is the first reason why he has been chosen the pea plants. Understand? And the second one, for example, if you want to take, so some plants having tall and some plants is having a dwarf. So he can say the plants who is having tall, they're having long stem or short stem, guys. They're having long stem. Understand? And those who are the plants which are having dwarf, they're having what? Arvind? They're having short stem. So this is the first reason why the Mendel has been chosen the pea plants, because so a lot of the number of clear-cut differences which we can easily tell by while we are comparing. So that is the first one is you can take the tall which is having a long stem and as well as dwarf which is having a short stem. Next, the second point is you can see they used to produce a round yellow seeds. They used to produce what? A round yellow seeds. If you go market, you can buy a pea plant seeds. You can see two kinds of thing. One is round yellow seeds and other one is wrinkled green seeds. What is that? Wrinkled green seeds. That is the different kind of seeds which he has been observed easily. And the next one, if you'll see the main important thing. So you tell me in pea plant, cross-pollination or self-pollination, guys? Anybody, if you have, remember in the last chapter, you can understand. So there, Arvind, Aishwarya, anybody can say what is the pollination, type of pollination in pea plants, cross-pollination or self-pollination? Look into the examples and tell me. So the best example why he has been chosen the pea plant is because it is the self-pollinating. So it can produce the next generation easily. So producing the next generation plant very easily in this. That is why it has been chosen by the Mendel's, self-pollinating. And finally, for example, he has been started analyzing with the humans or any animal. What is the lifespan? It is very, very long life to observe the animals and all. Is it yes or no, guys? Because maximum maybe Mendel's can survive, maybe let me take 100 years. But if he wants to observe the generations to generations by crossing, it will take hundreds of years. Yes or no? But if you take the pea plants, what is the lifespan of pea plants? very small. Yes or no, guys? So that is also very important. So very less short period of time, we can see many generations of pea plants. So that is, it is much simpler than that of animals. And that is the fourth reason why the Mendel chosen pea plant, because like it is not like animals, including human beings. So analyzing the characteristics inheritance in animals and human beings is very, very difficult because the lifespan is very high. So if we take the pea plants, so within a short period of time, we can see a many number of generations, and we can, our study is more easier. So that is why it has been chosen by the Mendels. That is the fourth point which everybody need to remember. So please, meeting is going to end, join very fastly. So what is that? Mendel choose the pea plant. Why, guys? Because the studying the inheritance, many generations of pea plant can be produced very short period of time. That is the reason. Okay, Elamati, have you understand, Elamati? So many generations of pea plant can see what? Can be produced very short period of time. Produced in a short time span. That is the